Hi dear students, hope you all are good. I'm Kavitha. I've been teaching for civil services examination from the past 8 years in Delhi, Bangalore and Chennai for anthropology and general studies as well. First of all, in this lecture, let's get an understanding about what is anthropology. And that is why you all are here, isn't it? I'm pretty sure most of you all wouldn't have had any idea about the subject called as anthropology until you began your preparation for the civil services examination, isn't it? Now, when you have taken up civil services as your career choice and you want to choose your optional subject, you would have come across the subject called as anthropology and you're curious to know what the subject can offer. How much marks can I score from the subject? Is it easy to study? What the subject deals with? How much marks will I score? Can a person being from science or non-science background opt for the subject and still score well? I know you have all of these questions and I will be answering all of these frequently asked questions at the end of the lecture. First, before everything, let's try to understand what is the subject anthropology, what it deals with, right? Anthropology. If I have to tell you in simple terms, anthropology is the study of man, right? Here we are not gender specific, it includes both men and women. So, anthropology is the study of human beings. That is, anthropology is the study of us, right? Anthropology is the study of human beings through time and space. Okay, so it is a study of human beings and their ancestors through time and space and in relation to the physical character, environmental and social relations and culture. What do we mean by time and space? Here we are studying human beings not just in the present form but also from the evolutionary perspective. That is how we descended from apes, isn't it? We all know at least that we have descended from apes. So, what were the changes that happened? Okay, so right from the apes to the present, that is from Australopithecus up to the present, Homo sapiens sapiens, what were the changes that happened? What were the anatomical changes which happened? What were the environmental changes which led to these changes? And accordingly, how did the culture also develop over time? This is what we mean by the study of the human beings and their ancestors through time. Okay, so here we are not just going to discuss about the physical changes or the anatomical changes which happened right from the time of apes, how we evolved from the apes up to the present, but we also will be discussing about the environmental and the corresponding cultural changes which happened over time. In anthropology, we have different sections like the socio cultural anthropology, physical anthropology, archaeological anthropology, linguistic, and the applications of anthropology, which we'll be studying under a separate section called as applied anthropology. If I have to define anthropology as how Alfred Kroeber defined it, we can say anthropology is the most humanistic of all the sciences and the most scientific of all humanities. We very well know that anthropologists are not the only people who are studying man or human beings, isn't it? So, even sociologists study human beings. Various disciplines study man, like sociology, human geography, archaeologists, ethnographers. So, like this, even though various disciplines study man or human beings, anthropology is peculiar. Why? Because each of these disciplines study only one particular aspect of human beings. Say, for example, sociology focuses on the society of humans. Similarly, you can see people who study medicine, right? These are concentrating on the physical and the anatomical parts of the human being, whereas geneticists study about the genetics of life, whereas it is only anthropology which studies human beings from a 360-degree perspective. That is, anthropology studies human beings in all perspectives and all aspects. So here in anthropology, we will be discussing about the society of human beings, right? Wherein we'll be discussing about social institutions like family, marriage, kinship, religion, political institutions, and so on. Then we'll also study about the cultural aspects of human beings. We study about the human mind in psychological anthropology. Under physical anthropology, we study about the anatomical features of human beings. Correct? So here you can see that we do not concentrate on any particular aspect of human beings. Instead, we have a holistic perspective, and that is why anthropology is called as a subject of holism, or we call it as a holistic study. Got it? So we are studying man or human beings from complete 360-degree perspective. That is why anthropology is so unique, and this is what makes anthropology so interesting. That is why Alfred Kroeber says anthropology is the most humanistic of all the sciences and the most scientific of all humanities. Now, coming to few of the most commonly asked questions by the aspirants before they choose anthropology as their optional subject. Why should I choose anthropology optional? So every year, if you see the top 10 to 15 rankers, there will be at least 3 to 4 top rankers who have chosen anthropology as their optional subject, right? So it is very easy to score a decent score in anthropology, and if you put little more efforts, you can get exceptional score and you will definitely be able to land in the top 10 or 15 ranks. Okay, and anthropology, if you take out the syllabus and you go through it, it seems very exhaustive, right? But however, that is not the case. In fact, when you start reading and you finish the chapters, you will understand that the syllabus in nature is very short, but it looks exhaustive. So anthropology has a very short syllabus, and because it deals with both the biological aspects and the sociological aspects of human beings, a student coming from any background, say a student coming from humanities background or from engineering or medicine or law or finance, management, a person from any degree, any background can definitely take up anthropology optional and score exceptionally good marks in comparison to other optional subjects. One more important thing I have to tell you here is the duration which we will take to complete anthropology optional is very, very less in comparison to the time which you will require to finish other optional subjects, say for example geography. Geography is a very lengthy optional subject and you need to spend a lot of time to master the subject. Whereas in anthropology, you need at least just 50% of the time to finish this optional and also revise it once. So because of its very short syllabus, you can complete the optional subject preparation very fast and you can concentrate on your general studies preparation. And another important question which most student asks is, is it necessary that only people from science background or a student who has a background from biology or medicine, is it only those students who can take anthropology optional and excel in it? Definitely not. Okay, any student from any background, whether biology background or engineering or management, finance, any subject, they can take up anthropology optional subject and score exceptionally well. So please do not have this fear that you should have a scientific background or you should have studied science up to your degree if you have to take up anthropology optional. If you have studied science up to matriculation, that is up to 10th standard, that much level of science is sufficient for you to understand and excel in anthropology. Even beyond that, when we are discussing the topics in class, I will be beginning the lectures right from the very basics, like what is a cell, what are the different cell organelles, and so on. So you definitely need not fear about the science factor. If you check the UPSC Anthropology Optional syllabus, you can see that under Physical Anthropology, we study about the origin and evolution of man's physical characters, and we also go on with the diversity of the forms. So, many of the students have this question whether physical anthropology will be tough, what part of the syllabus is physical anthropology, how do we target this part of the syllabus, and so on. Please do not make it so complicated. Physical anthropology deals with the evolution. We discuss little bit of genetics in that. We study about the origin and evolution of man, how the physical characters changed, how the development or the evolution from the apes up to the present level happened, and so on. And physical anthropology occupies only around 40% of the syllabus in paper 1, and you can study that very easily. Then in paper 1, we also discuss the Socio Cultural Anthropology, wherein we have topics like family, marriage, kinship, religion, political anthropology, and so on. Though we discuss these topics in sociology also, what is it that makes anthropology unique? In anthropology, we will be discussing in detail about the religion, political institution, family, and so on about the primitive people. Correct? So, in anthropology, we'll be studying about the different religion of the primitive people. When we say primitive people, it means tribes. So, here we will be concentrating about the different religions of tribe. Say, for example, animism, animatism, totemism, Hobongaism, and so on. Okay. Similarly, in other chapters like political anthropology, economic anthropology, or family kinship, we will be more and more focused or skewed towards the study of the tribal population or the primitive people. And that is what makes anthropology so interesting. Okay. In addition to this, in paper 2, we concentrate on the Indian society, and tribal studies forms a major part of paper 2. So under paper 2, the first few chapters we discuss about the evolution of Indian culture and civilization, wherein we'll be discussing about the different lithic cultures, copper age, bronze age, paleolithic, mesolithic, neolithic culture, and so on. Then we go on to discuss with the Indian society and culture. So what are the topics which we will discuss in Indian society and culture? See, these are the topics which we have been witnessing in our day-to-day life. So being born and raised as an Indian is sufficient to understand entire paper 2 anthropology, because the topics which we discuss here are very simple topics which we are watching in our everyday life, isn't it? Say, for example, the various cultural practices, our religion, caste practices, the traditional basis of Indian society like Rina, rebirth, Purushartha, and so on. It's just that you might not have heard of these technical terms, isn't it? So you know what is Brahmacharya, what is Purushartha. When we discuss these topics, you will understand that you knew all these very well, but you actually did not know that these you have to utilize these technical terms to explain this. So we will be discussing about various cultural practices which happen throughout our country, like the festivals which we celebrate, about the caste system, what are the reasons or what are the different theories for the origin of caste system, the different religions which are prevalent in our country, right? So how each one of these religions had their birth and how they have impacted our Indian society, isn't it? So how religion like Christianity and Islam, which came into our country, how did they influence our Indian society? How they influence the tribal society? What are the contributions of these religions to our society? So like this, we will be discussing a lot of interesting topics which we are very well aware and we are witnessing in our every day-to-day life. And in addition to that, we also have few topics in village studies where we'll be discussing about the village society, what is the agricultural practices which they do there, how is their culture, what are the changes which have happened in the village society from earlier to present, and so on. We'll be discussing topics like globalization, urbanization, modernization, all which are interlinked with each other. And a major part of paper 2 is on tribal studies, right? tribal studies. So when we say tribal studies, I'm sure many of you will be curious to know, right? So in tribal studies, we will be discussing about the various tribes, not just in India, but also about tribes present across the world. So we will be studying about the tribal food habits, their practices, their culture, their religion, their political organizations, right? Their racial, how each of these tribes are different racially, what are, what are their myths, mythologies. We'll be discussing few case studies. There'll be a lot of interesting case studies and myths about each of these tribes, which will make you surprised because you wouldn't have even heard of any of these mythologies or case studies until now. Say, let me give you an example of one myth about a tribe called as Baigas. The Baigas are the tribes which are present in Madhya Pradesh. So traditionally the Baigas are cultivators, that is their occupation is agriculture or cultivation of crops, right? So how did they get this occupation? So they have a mythical story or a mythology associated with this. They say that once upon a time the entire earth was full of water and there was no land whatsoever. So it was Lord Brahma who created some land amidst this water, and from this land, two different human beings arose. One was a Brahmin and the other one was a Baiga. Okay. So Lord Brahma gave some scriptures and some materials and all this educational material to the Brahmin, and he asked him to study that. Whereas he gave a sickle. You understand what is a sickle, right? Sickle is the one which we use to do agriculture, right? So he gave a sickle and some food grains to the Baiga, and he told them that you have to start doing agriculture. And that is why the Baigas have taken over this occupation of agriculture, and they've been doing this agricultural activity since several generations. So this is the story they give, or this is the mythological belief which they have to say why they are agriculturalists, right? Similarly, we'll be discussing lot number of case studies wherein I will say about few tribes who believe that there should not be a window in their hut. Do you know why? Because they believe that if there is a window, it will be a passage or it will be a entry point for spirits to enter inside the huts. So they construct a hut without any windows. They will have only a single door for entry and exit. So like this, there are a lot number of interesting case studies and myths and mythologies, which as and how you read, you will get more and more interest to study and score very well. Finally, I will tell you, by reading anthropology or by studying anthropology, you can notice a certain percentage of change in your overall personality, because anthropology makes us think and understand different people from their perspective, from their cultural standpoint, and as being a member of that community. As human beings, we all have lot of judgments and prejudices about everything, isn't it? But once we start studying anthropology, we will understand, we will try to understand every cultural practice, belief, traditions, practices as a member of that community or as a member of that region. Okay? And then we will understand the reason behind those practices, and we will become less and less judgmental. So anthropology will definitely bring about a change in your personality, and definitely that will be a positive one. So as Ruth Benedict says, the purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human differences. Isn't it? Our world is different. Each one of us is different. And we will try to understand these differences, and we will still try to make the world a better place to live in. I hope we have a good journey studying anthropology, and we also achieve the target of scoring exceptionally well and making it to the final rank. Thank you.